The people who get upset when you start setting boundaries are the people who have historically been benefiting from you not setting them. Hi there, welcome to Sunny with a Chance of Chaos. I'm Lindsay, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and get ready for a little bit of chaos and a whole lot of sunshine. Hello and welcome back. I'm so glad you're here for season 2, episode 7. So a couple months ago, I was having a conversation with one of my good friends, also a teacher, and I mentioned how many different projects I had on the go in various areas of my life, in particular at work, and how I just keep saying yes to everything. She replied, "So awesome that you're grabbing onto all these opportunities, but you do know it's okay to say no sometimes too, right?" And I reflected for a minute and then I replied, yes, actually, I do know that. I actually do. And the reason I could respond so adamantly is because not too long ago, I was still a 100% bona fide card-carrying people pleaser. And I have a lifetime of experience to back up my understanding of this concept. So it was only in the last couple of years I started to understand the value of letting go of people pleasing. And I started spending a little bit more energy setting boundaries to ensure that I remain safe and happy and fulfilled in my life. When I reflected on our conversation later that day, it started to turn into a podcast episode, and I saw the connections and the overlap with the topics from the first season of when help is not helpful and self-care, and also that big scary one about boundaries. It's a topic I keep dancing around, but I haven't really gotten to yet. So this episode really does feel like the gateway to a larger conversation on boundaries, because a huge element of being a people pleaser is either the inability or the unwillingness to set boundaries for yourself. When you continually put other folks' needs before your own, setting boundaries is the antidote for that. So people pleasing and boundaries are most definitely interconnected. So I'm just going to start talking and we're just going to see how this all comes together. So what is people pleasing? What does it mean to be a people pleaser? By definition, people pleasing is the tendency to prioritize the needs of others over one's own, often at the expense of their own desires, wants, or values. I would add that it's also often at the expense of their own mental health and well-being. You know, I might know a little bit about that from personal experience. Here we go again. Okay. I want to preface this episode with the disclaimer that I do not have it all figured out yet. Let me be clear. The title of this episode is Tales of a Recovering People Pleaser for a reason. I'm learning some of the tricks and skills that a person needs to be an effective and healthy boundary setter. There was a time when I didn't have any of these skills, like none. I can think of many standard examples of people pleasing and the fallout of them, but here's a few from my own life from the past few years. If you are also a card-carrying people pleaser, or maybe a recovering one, you may be able to relate to some of these. First example, showing up at a dinner party on a Friday after the world's longest week at work, not emotionally available to be engaged in small talk, but unable to put my own needs first and simply bow out of the dinner. I wasn't sick, I wasn't busy with other plans, but I sure as shit didn't want to go to dinner. I couldn't justify letting the hostess down just because I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. So I went, and I was miserable, but I pretended to be fine so that the lovely friend hosting wouldn't feel bad. Prioritizing someone else's needs? Check. Example number 2, showing up at work, teaching grade 2. I was sick as a dog. I was actually throwing up in the first trimester of my pregnancy because I didn't want the kids to miss out on making Easter bunny traps in class that day. I was definitely prioritizing the needs of my students over my own health and well-being. I don't think I took a sick day unless I had a delirium-inducing fever for the first 10 years of my teaching career. This is a tricky one to navigate, actually, because we need to be committed to our work, in my case, my students, and we need to show up for them. We need to show up. We need to go to work, obviously. And also, where's the line? How do you know when to just stop and take a day? I have a hard time with this one sometimes, as a lot of you might in your own jobs. I love my work. I love the work I do, and I love showing up for my kids. So it's difficult for me sometimes to put myself first when I'm actively throwing up. Okay, example number 3. This is a good one. Last minute Christmas shopping while in labor with my first child because I really needed to make sure my husband had those socks in his stocking on Christmas Day. Really, Lindsay? Really? Do you think he actually cared about the socks? I'm literally walking around Walmart looking for socks, having contractions. It was something. Example number 4. More recently, in the last couple of years, saying yes to going on a date with somebody I had been chatting with online, even though there were no vibes, just because I felt bad and I didn't want him to feel let down. And well, you can guess how that first date ended. I should have just said no in the first place. Boundaries, right? Okay. Example number 5, sitting in a group of men who were making jokes about women and their role in the kitchen and in the bedroom. And I was laughing along, even though my blood was boiling, all for the sake of not causing conflict. And also because I was feeling outnumbered and I didn't want to come across as disagreeable or difficult. Yuck. This one has a major ick factor for me, and I still carry shame about not speaking up in this situation. Example number 6, saying yes to a million things. Yes, I can bake for that bake sale. Yes, I can bring an appetizer to dinner next week. Yes, I can dog sit. Yes, I can take on that extra project at school. Each of these on their own is not a problem. I love my friends. I love appetizers. I love dogs. But each of these things I'm thinking of as examples, I said yes to at a time when I had little to no bandwidth for myself. I was not in a great place with my own emotional wellness, and I only said yes so that I didn't let someone else down. Meanwhile, I'm coming home exhausted and in tears, but I was unable to say simply, no, I can't do that today. And this is a direct line to exhaustion, resentment, burnout, and most importantly, inauthentic relationships with your people. People pleasing isn't just doing favors and bringing appetizers. It appears in the deep folds of the fabric of our relationships as well. The friend who always says, oh yeah, we can eat at whatever restaurant you want. I'm easy. Or the husband whose social life gets swallowed up by that of his wife's because it's easier than putting up a fight and asking if they can hang out with his friends this weekend. It's the employee that's willing to be taken advantage of and continually get asked to do too many things because her coworkers know she'll always say yes. So why do we people please? Where does this behavior come from, and why does it persist? The underlying answer here, it keeps us safe from something, and that something is different for everyone. Sometimes people pleasing presents as conflict avoidance. Sometimes we say yes to things just to avoid the fight. This often comes from growing up in a house where you walked on eggshells, or if you were in a long-term relationship or friendship with someone with an explosive personality. Often, folks will people please to keep the peace and avoid being the focus of someone's anger, disappointment, or ridicule. So we're protecting ourselves, right? It makes sense. Another quote I've read is that people pleasers often started out as parent pleasers. For some people, impressing their folks was the most important way to keep themselves safe and securely attached. And the people pleaser is born. It's really simple. Sometimes people pleasing comes from a place where we're just too scared to take up too much space in the world. The thinking might be, if I ask for what I need, that will be inconvenient for other people. So I'm just going to go along with whatever they want to do. Taking up space is a consistent theme I've been working on in my people-pleasing recovery. I think it sums up for me the problem I've had for years of feeling like I was just too much for people. If I stayed small and polite and said yes, then I couldn't possibly be seen as being too much. People pleasing can also stem from a deep-seated need just to be liked. You might think, or more likely it's actually subconscious, if I just go along with everything, then I don't have to worry about offending anyone or anyone being mad at me. Needing to be liked, needing affirmation and validation is often at the root of people pleasing. And don't get me wrong, this is a very, very natural human need to be accepted and be validated and feel like a part of something. I saw an Instagram reel the other day that said, I really don't need much. I just need to know that no one's mad at me and everyone likes me and to be validated constantly and no one thinks anything bad about me. But yeah, like I don't really need a whole lot from people. And I died laughing at this reel because that was me. Try to stay as small as possible, look like you don't need much, go out of your way, sacrifice your sanity to keep other people happy, just so that no one will think you're needy or desperate, annoying, not polite, not generous. It goes on and on. Okay, so now we know what people pleasing looks like and we know where its roots are, but what are we going to do about it? Okay, let's say you find yourself in the people-pleasing loop. It's such a hard habit to break because putting your own needs first is a very hard thing to do, especially for folks who don't have a lot of practice with it. If you have not read Untamed by Glennon Doyle, please do it now. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just grab that book and breathe it in. This book was the TSN turning point for me on my journey to end my people-pleasing ways. She talks about the fact that for generations, women have been socialized to be small, quiet, polite, toe the party line, go with the flow. It's a very hard habit to break. So how do we get out of it? How do we start setting boundaries and putting ourselves first? I want to be clear. Setting boundaries and prioritizing your own mental and physical well-being does not mean becoming the neighborhood witch or the office bitch. It doesn't have to swing that wildly. But let me tell you, the first time you say no, the first time you put your own needs first, you're gonna feel like the villain. It's very uncomfortable for a person who's always pleasing others to take care of themselves first. There's a risk here in the mind of the people pleaser. The risk is they won't like me. They will think I'm selfish. They'll be disappointed, etc. And this might be true, but only for the people who are not your people. You're never too much for your people. And another key thing to note here is that the people who get upset, this is really important, probably one of the most important things I'm going to say in this episode. The people who get upset when you start setting boundaries are the people who have historically been benefiting from you not setting them. No, thank you. Less of that, please. The first time you set that hard boundary, remember, someone who was benefiting from your lack of boundaries is going to be upset. Okay, let's get to fixing this problem. Here are 5 tips on how to make sure you are in balance with saying yes when it feels good and saying no when you need to, instead of defaulting to putting others first always. Number 1, prioritize your essential needs, both mentally and physically. This could be anything from time on your own, time to play your guitar, time to go to the gym, read that new book. Remember, as we've discussed in other episodes, self-care is not selfish. Often our hobbies and self-care get put last because other people's needs come first. Try carving out a time each week that's non-negotiable. For example, no, I can't commit to that event on Tuesdays because Tuesday nights are when I work on my painting or whatever. Maybe you're staring at the sky. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you need, carve out non-negotiable time for it. It's kind of like a date night with yourself. Number 2, be compassionate with yourself. I think the key thing to remember here is that it's not your job to be everything to everyone. It's okay if you have to say no to someone. The right person, someone who loves you and respects you, won't hold that against you. I have a t-shirt that says, "You can't make everyone happy. You are not pizza." And it makes me smile. And it also reminds me that it's not my job to make sure everyone else is okay all the time. It is my job to make sure that I'm okay so that I can show up for my people when I'm available to do so. Number 3, Stop over apologizing. I talked about this at length in season 2, episode 2, but it bears repeating in the context of people pleasing here. So when you're not able to meet the needs of another person, sometimes our default response is, I'm so sorry, I can't let your dog out tomorrow morning, or I'm so sorry, I can't make it to dinner. Instead of saying sorry, try saying thank you. Maybe thank them for their time, thank them for thinking about you. It puts you on even ground with the person instead of putting you beneath them. I'm not saying never apologize. I just mean don't overdo it when gratitude would do the trick. Number 4, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. People pleasing very often happens because it keeps us safe from uncomfortable feelings. So what happens when we stop people pleasing? We start feeling uncomfortable feelings. It keeps us safe from ridicule, rejection, judgment, shame, or at least we believe it does. We people please so that people will like us and we feel validated. And let me tell you, when you start self-pleasing instead of people-pleasing, you're going to hate it. It's going to feel really uncomfortable because it's new and it's vulnerable and it's risky. But I challenge you to sit with that discomfort. Just let it pass over and through you, and never forget that the people who are upset about your boundaries are the ones who've likely been benefiting from your lack of them. Okay, number 5. Lastly, never abandon yourself. Do not abandon yourself. Be true to who you are, what you believe in, and what you need in order to stay healthy and well. This takes time, and you may not be able to find your voice right away. If you're in a conversation like the one I was in, where you do not agree with the toxic nature of the conversation, and it's too much for you to speak up loud and proud, you can take baby steps. Abandoning yourself would look like laughing along with the misogynistic jokes, or even making a joke yourself. If you can't speak up just yet, try walking away from the group or the setting, or finding someone more like-minded to talk to. At least it's a start. Quitting people-pleasing behaviors can be super tough to do, especially if that's a pattern of behavior you've subscribed to for your entire life. For me, when I stopped trying to people-please, I really felt like the villain. I felt like the villain in everyone's story every single time. And it brought a lot of shame and fear that people wouldn't like me anymore if I started ensuring my own peace was protected first. So I started saying a few little mantras to myself that I would repeat whenever I needed to draw a line or put my needs first. I would say things like, self-care is not selfish. Someone didn't like me and it's okay. And you can't make everyone happy. You are not pizza. Now, let me be clear, because obviously the opinions and lives and well-being of the people I love and cherish matter to me very much. And there are going to be instances when I'm not going to subscribe to these ideals. But when it comes to pleasing those people whose admiration I was seeking for no other reason than my own ego, I put those down first. I stood up for myself in a friendship that was becoming extremely toxic, and I cried and I cried and I cried, all the while repeating to myself, let them think what they want about you. I set a boundary at work, and I said no to a task that was put upon me that was way beyond my capacity time-wise, and I spent the rest of the week saying to myself, it's okay to disappoint someone else to protect your peace. I think that's what it comes down to for me. I hate disappointing people. It makes me feel icky. So I'm learning to sit with the ick. I still show up for my people. I work hard at my job. I make sacrifices for my kids and my friends. But at the end of the day, when I do have to put myself first, I have learned to sit with the feeling it creates, and I repeat my mantras, and I protect my peace. Let's go to the stacks. There's quite a few amazing resources on boundaries and people pleasing. Calm.com, CALM.com, has some great content on their website about people pleasing as well as boundary setting. Jay Shetty has, that's SHETTY, has an episode on his podcast On Purpose. The episode's called 7 Steps on How to Say No, Stop People Pleasing, and Prioritize Yourself. Jay is a life coach and a therapist who has published books and whose podcast is really easy and relatable to listen to. The book that I read is called Boundaries by Melissa Urban. I love the simple strategies she offers to help get you started with boundary setting. She includes sample scripts of things to say in various situations. It's really well done. I love this book and I highly recommend it. All right, this week's gratitude goes out to my friend Dee, who suggested I read the book Boundaries when she astutely noticed that I might need it. And my best friend S, who gave me a little pin for my jacket that said, "Someone didn't like me and it was okay." And she has held my hand and my heart every time I break a people-pleasing pattern. So thank you to both of those friends. All right, everyone, take care of yourself. And when things get chaotic this week, don't forget to turn your face towards the sun. See you next time. Bye.